Welcome to the Businessmen and Women of Color podcast. I am your host, Ed Alston, and it is once again my pleasure to bring quality programs to all of you. I am excited again to be here with another amazing professional, somebody who's in the industry that I love, which is information technology and security. So I can't wait to talk to him about his new positions and things that he's doing in the technology space. And I hope you guys are excited too. I am especially excited because in 2018, this podcast has literally been lit on fire with so many amazing people coming on this podcast because they recognize that this is the place and the platform that you need to be on. Just in case you didn't know, the purpose of the BMWC is to share our industry information and also encourage you, the working professional, college students, anyone who's looking to make a career transition and really understand the different trends and evolutions in our industries that's going on right now. And so with that, I want you to check out all the pages, take a moment to listen to all the podcasts because there's so much information that you can take advantage of, and you're not going to be able to get that anywhere else but the BMWOC podcast. One of the things we're going to do before we get started is to thank our corporate sponsors, which are Cat Sereno LLC, Cheryl Wood Empowers, Concern and Learning, Evangelism Radio, Genesis Preferred Solutions, J Coach International, Nels Tax Help, My Financial Home, Power, STCI, and the Student Teacher, along with our other business affiliates and sponsors, and all of the participants that's making this season a success. So at the top of the podcast, I was talking about one of my favorite core industries of all time, which is information technology. And today we have Marichal Haynes on the podcast today. He is a system security analyst for Stenton Leonard Street. And he has been in the network security role for about 3 years now. And aside from doing that, he's also worked in a number of other networking roles over his 15-year career. And he has done a lot to gain experience when it comes to cybersecurity, systems, all type of things working in this space. And so he's going to be here today to talk about his background, his interest and love for IT, and some of the things he's going to be doing today. So welcome, Marichal, to the podcast.
Oh, thank you for having me.
So tell everybody who you are, where you're from, and how did you get into information technology?
Okay. Well, once again, my name is Marichal Haynes, and I'm from Kansas City, Missouri. I've been in IT now for, like Ann said, over 15 years. I got started in 2000, over 15 years. I got started in 2001 on the ground level of the help desk. Before I did the help desk, before I got into the help desk, I got my undergrad from DeVry at network communications management, and was lucky enough to land in my first IT role, while going to school. And it's just, people along the way, to get that job. I had a friend that helped me get that job and was able to get in the door. I worked that job for a number of years, kind of learned the industry. Got tired of taking phone calls, found another role to get into in a network operations center. Worked there for a few years. That's where I got the experience working with routers. Not much time on the phone, but got more into the troubleshooting aspect of it all. And after a number of years of working at that, a network engineering role, more hands-on experience with routers, actually being able to make changes in that aspect. And then I made the shift to security, which network security has always been intriguing to me, and was able to make that transition, which was a difficult transition, but was able to successfully make that transition. And I love what I do. I mean, at the present moment, as far as security that I work in, it's compliance, working on compliance, a lot of cyber prevention, phishing emails prevention, doing a lot of training on that, what to look for as far as phishing emails and things like that, vulnerability scans, everything to keep the law firm itself with the security, all the things that come through a law firm, keeping that information secure and safe.
Okay, fantastic. And I have tons of questions for you because you said a whole lot there, stuff that I have actually done myself. And the reason why I kind of want to touch on some of these little areas that I'm about to ask you questions for, because during the time that I was doing a lot of mentoring, and even today, there's still a lot of stigma about what cybersecurity is and things like that. But I want to go back to your history and how you got into IT. Were you always really just into technology as a kid, or were you just kind of introduced to it as you kind of got older and was doing any other type of work before you became an IT specialist, maybe doing another type of job?
It's fun. It's funny that you actually asked me that. I think it was always in me. As a child, my grandmother bought me a computer, the 486s back in the day. I actually had a Tandy. That's how old it goes back. And as a
Really? Yeah.
kid, yeah, and as
I remember
and as
those.
a kid, yeah, and as a kid, I had my grandmother gave me this book, and it was programming. I didn't realize it was programming. It was COBOL programming. I didn't even realize what I was doing. It was just fun to do these things, to do these little projects that the book had, and run this code and figure out how it worked, and made a ton of mistakes and always went back. I mean, I even remember as a kid writing it on paper, and got away from it as I grew up. Of course, you find different interests and things like that. And my first thing I wanted to be was a lawyer. I wanted to get into law. I was studying law. And then I was in California studying law after I got out of the military. And when I moved back home to Kansas City, law just didn't interest me anymore. And I was like, what can I do that, you know, would make me some money, of course, but what is it that I'm going to like to do? And the whole thing for computers. I mean, I was right at the beginnings of the dot-com age. Everyone was jumping in, and I jumped in as well.
Yeah, I remember those days. I'm gonna tell you, I'm older than you are, so I remember the first Windows platform, the first Apple platform. I mean, I'm going all the way
Hmm.
back to Atari, where it was just two lines and a dot. Okay, so
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I go back that far, and when I remember something similar, like with my grandmother, she always said that there is two ways that you can succeed in any kind of business, and one is getting a job at the government and
Hmm.
learning the new technology that people were talking about way back when in the 60s and the 70s. And
Hmm.
so it was sort of like talked about, but nobody really understood what it was. The Department of Defense knew what it was because they're the ones that was developing the internet, but at the same time, nobody really knew what that technology was. But my grandmother, who didn't know anything about technology, I think the most that she ever knew was how to type on a typewriter. Okay. So,
Yeah.
but she heard the trend and she said, Anissa, you need to either get in the government or you need to. And I'm sitting there like, I don't want to do that. I want to be a recording artist because I can sing. I want to meet Michael
Yeah.
Jackson and I want to do all this stuff. And I sort of fell in it too, going to business school, trying to be an executive secretary. And I was introduced to the Wang, the IBM, first
Hmm.
Windows, and ended up doing college work studies and introduced to all the other ones, like the very, very early Word Perfect, the very early Windows
Oh, yeah.
3.0,
Yeah.
all that stuff.
You
And it's
right.
interesting you said that because it just brought back so many memories.
I don't even think my grandmother realized what she was doing. She just was like, hey, I just remember seeing a computer, asking about it, had no clue what to do with it. And I think for her, it was just, this is a gift I'm getting my grandson for Christmas. I don't know what it is. I mean, they had no clue what they were giving me. That's what I
Yeah.
asked for Christmas, and
Hmm.
that's what they gave me. And I was happy. I guess they were happy that they got it for me, and it kind of let me do my thing with it. And it's just funny how it comes full circle, because I mean, when I got out of the military, which my job in the military had nothing to do with computers, and even as far as when I got to college and it was like taking law classes, it just, as much as I wanted to do that, it just didn't feel right.
You know,
It
and
became.
it's interesting you say that too, because I remember also times where people sat a C++ book in front of me, or Unix, or even a COBOL. I remember somebody actually sitting that there, and they said, okay, we're going to do a robot and we're going to write it in code. And I sat there for 3 days learning how to write a code that will make a robot do 5 moves, and it took like 30 steps to make this 5 moves.
Hmm.
And I knew that just by doing that exercise, that that is not something I wanted to do. And so
Yeah.
that kind of leads into my next, segment as far as questions. So let's talk about the industry itself, and being African American and just kind of being in that space and being a male, because if you've been in there as long as I've been in there, okay, 15 years, you've been in there a long time. Talk about
Hmm.
some of the challenges that you had to face just going in for the first time, and how you had to kind of overcome some of those challenges being in that space during that time.
Oh, early on in my career, it was tough, and I think a lot of it is I made it even tougher. As far as like attitude and things like that. I think when, especially, being black coming into this, you have to understand that your credibility is everything, and you can gain it in a second, you can lose it in a second, and that was something I didn't learn till later on. I mean, you're in your 20s, you're 20 years old. I mean, I had no responsibility, so my whole paycheck was mine, and I thought that was just the end of it. I'm just going to sit here and just ride it out, because the mentality that my grandparents gave me is you get to it, you find you a good job and you stay there. Well, I managed to do that early, but what I didn't learn that I had to learn later is that there's a game within itself, and you have to deal with egos. You have to deal with, you know, a lot of negative things that, if you're not aware of, you can get caught up in them. And there's also a lot of good in there. You just have to find the bright spots and pick and choose, those moments to shine. But credibility is everything.
Okay, yeah, that is definitely interesting. Attitude is a big part of it, because I would say, in parallel to what you're saying, and 15 years ago, you really had to show that you were equal, and that
Mhm.
was even hard, knowing that you're not going to have equal pay, you're not going to have equal opportunity, you're not going to have equal anything, but your
Exactly.
attitude had to show that you were happy to be there, that you were a team player, that you were willing to sacrifice. And even when you did all of those things, you still did not get what you were worth, or paid, or had the opportunity to learn even more. And
That
so just having the attitude alone, for me, because I was the same way, I didn't understand the mentality, of the workplace when I was younger. I was thinking,
Mhm.
okay, so I have these skills, I'm gonna come in here, and yeah, they're kind of dependent on me. So I think I'm, a little bit like up there, but I had to kind of eat that a little bit and say, okay, yeah, my attitude might be subpar, but it's not something that people will gravitate to and make me approachable.
Mhm.
And
Exactly.
yeah, and that was really hard. But I'm pretty sure, just like myself, you found ways that you can improve your skills in technology. And so with that, what was some of the driving forces for you that led you to really hone in on what in technology you wanted to do? Because a lot of people say, I want to get in information technology, and we both know it's a vast thing. But talk a little bit about what decisions you made that helped you decide where and what direction that you wanted to go in.
Okay. I think, well, early on, as far as the networking side of it all, that's where I kind of got started as a network operations, sitting in a it's kind of like a call center, but you're just not, sitting on the phone 24 hours a day. But just sitting there, and you're watching other people, and you're watching the things that they do. You have some people and in different positions, and for me, it was always one of those things of, I want to be that guy. How can I get to where they are? And the craziest thing is that in a lot of cases, Nobody would tell you, even if you did ask. And being young, ambitious, and, at that time driven to where it's like, I want to be doing what that guy's doing. I want to be in management. I want to go as far as I can take it. It's disheartening when no one tells you. And in my experience, the worst was when you have, our own as far as other Black people that are in those positions, not wanting really to give you the game, so to speak. And so when you're young and you have all this drive and you're asking because you're being, I was raised, if you want to know something, ask. And you don't get the answer, you start becoming frustrated. And so I think the biggest part of advice in that is keep asking. Someone's going, you're going to run across those people that are going to give you that hand and give you that leg up. And I was fortunate enough to run across two older guys, Black men, that were like, they saw something in me. They knew exactly, they asked the right questions. What do you want to do? And as far as security became a big thing. I started seeing, a lot of things, the talk of cybercrime and things like that, and digital forensics. As I researched further, that became an interest to me. And that was, that began the pursuit of how do I get into security. And it was a lot of self-study and,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of self-study and realistically just kind of forcing my way in because they want, a lot of places want you to have experience you just don't have unless you are
Mm-hmm.
doing the work.
Right. And what about certifications? Because, you're talking about fighting your way in, and that's just
Mm-hmm.
trying to convince people that you have the skills and knowledge, right? But then
That is correct.
you also had to go out and get certifications, correct?
That is correct. Security Plus certification. I just started to research since I'm more in a risk management role, getting that information, buying the books for it, looking at where I could possibly take like a class for that certification. I mean, the one thing about security, IT overall, but mainly security, is you can't stop once you get in the door. You have to keep pounding the pavement, so to speak. And the more certifications you have, that proves your skill set, that opens the doors for you. And that seems to be what the game really is, especially in security.
Hmm. Yeah, I think I would say that if people are going to get a security in IT, to make sure that you know your career path, because like you can get a certification all day, but if your skills is not matching or your future
Mhm.
job is not going to match, because not only are you paying all this money, you're doing all this studying, you have to think about how is that certificate or that certification you're getting is going to benefit you in the next 3, 5, 10 years. So
Exactly.
if you're going to go out there and spend $600 for a CISSP,
You better know
you
where you're
need to,
going with
you
it.
better know where you're going. So okay, so let's get into the cybersecurity thing, because a lot of people want to hear
Okay.
that. Okay, so when you are
Okay.
doing cybersecurity and you sort of have like an insight in that, talk about
Hmm.
some of the, I would say, call it sacrifices or things that you have to give up about yourself just to get into a security role. Now, all of them don't require that. I know that when I did security, I did not need a public trust or a background check and things like that. But
Hmm.
based on your
I,
experience, talk a little bit about that if you can.
oh yeah, yeah. It's either I didn't. It's the same for me. I didn't need a public trust or anything like that. For me, it was just I started with Security Plus just because realistically I didn't know where to start, and so I just started with the Security Plus certification, and then once I got in and learned, I can do digital forensics, I can do risk management, I can do fraud investigations, I can do there's all types of avenues, and but you can get in the door with the Security Plus certification, and that would be my recommendation to anybody. Is just get that. It's a vendor neutral certification by CompTIA. Just get the book. You can get it pretty much anywhere, Barnes and Noble, library, anywhere. Just start there and get that. That's what's going. That'll help you get in the door. I mean, it tells everyone that at least you have an idea of what security is, even though that's not even scratching the surface. Once you get in the door, though, whatever IT job it is security job, once you get in and you see the different roles, pick a direction and go and start building your skill set to what it is you want to do. Like we were saying earlier, if you get a CISSP, that is an expensive certification. Everyone respects it, but know what you're going to
Hmm.
do with it.
Right,
Don't
right. And
get it, get
that's
it,
right.
get it with purpose. Get it with a purpose.
Right. And definitely make sure that I don't know if everybody knows this who's listening on this call about CISSP, but in order to, you just can't just take the test alone and pass it. You
Oh,
actually have to be, sponsored. I'm going to use the word sponsor because that's what they say. You have to be vetted by another CISSP holder. So,
yep,
they really are a stickler to make sure that you are meeting up to the standards of the I what is it ICS square. Okay,
yeah, yeah.
they they want you to
I
follow
see it
that.
too. Yeah, and I mean it's a tough one. It's a tough one, and you're absolutely correct. I mean, they want to know you're definitely vetted. They also want you to know, and I think especially being black, I mean, we just have to go that much harder. And I mean, it's just another hurdle to prove that we belong and that you know we know what we're talking about, because there's a lot of people that some people get in the door without it. But my biggest thing is if that's a pursuit for you, you do it with a purpose, and you build your skill set around, hey, this is what I want to do. As far
Right.
as job title, role, or
Mhm.
type of work, this is what I want to do, and
Right.
that's the tool that's going to help you get there.
Okay, so here's another tough question for you. Give me your definition of what you consider as cyber security. Okay, from a security perspective, everybody says cybersecurity, internet, all that kind of stuff. But when you're actually doing the work on a day to day basis, what is cybersecurity really?
I think overall, cybersecurity is just the protection of information that through the internet. I mean, I think that's just the simplest way that I could put it, because when you say cybersecurity, it's so broad. It can go either way. I mean, like what I do. My job is risk compliance, and I do some prevent. Some of my job is prevention with vulnerability scans and vetting phishing emails and things like that. But that it doesn't really take a what's the way I want to put it. It takes effort, but it's way different than what you would see, say, on a commercial or a TV show of cybersecurity and what it is. You're not sitting in a dark room. You're not in front of a PC just staring down and all this information is popping up. I mean, it's information, but it's in different ways, and it comes a different way, and you know every role is different. And I mean, my role, it's a lot of training. It's a lot of passing. It's the passing of information for me. Make practices amongst our firm, what our policies are for the firm as far as how people get email because of the type of information, the attorneys and stuff, the type of information that they get. And it, like I said, the biggest thing is just the protection of information through the internet.
Yeah, people don't think about like how the information is going across other than I just want my email to get to the other person,
Hmm.
or I just want my picture or my video to be uploaded in social media. But there's always somebody who has a way to listen for that data, whether it's going
Yes.
through the air or through the wire. And that's why I always talk about internet safety. I talk about, being mindful of what you click on or what you disclose when you are sending something. And privacy is no longer private. There is no such thing as privacy anymore.
No,
Everybody
not
knows everything. So even at work, everybody knows everything. You just never know who's watching what you're doing on a day to day or minute to minute. I would say that from my perspective, working with cybersecurity is really just goes in tandem with information assurance, just assuring that the data is
hmm
accurate and meeting the CIA, which is the confidentiality, the integrity, and accountability of all of that stuff together. And cybersecurity is how you're protecting the data that you have on your computer, on your network drive, and even when you go to the fax machine and fax something, is it compromised? You know,
and I yeah,
I
and
remember, I was going to say this one thing. I remember one time where we had some penetration testers come in
hmm
into the office, and they literally just got on the elevator with coworkers like anybody else and waited for someone to push the button and rolled with them up to the floor and got on the floor. Or another one had actually walked up to a copy machine, hit a couple of buttons, found out what the scan username and password was, and was able to access the entire network from a local
and
computer
I
at a desk. You know.
yeah, and I mean that kind of was getting ready to go. What I was about to add to it. I
Mhm.
mean, it's not so much as confidentiality of information, but confidentiality of yourself. I mean, I think people don't realize how much we tell on ourselves. And in cybersecurity, that is a big thing. I mean, just in my own experience, me being able to walk into someone's cubicle and just by what they have in their cubicle, I can pretty much gauge an idea of what their password is based on what's in their cubicle because we do what's common. And that's kind of the biggest thing right there is how much information we voluntarily give. And I don't think people think about that as well, but
No, I
it's
don't think so.
but I think, but to me, it's just the protection of information. I mean, it's not going anywhere. Cyber criminals are getting better every day, and as for myself, I have to get better every day, and that
Yeah.
the sacrifice is a lot of Friday nights and Saturday nights at home when I could be, with my kids, with my friends, with family, some sort of social life. But it's just, it's Saturday night and I'm looking at a webinar or I'm reading the certification book, and that's the sacrifice that I'm happy to make, because I like leaving work every day feeling like I accomplished something, I made a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to get into this last segment because I have to bring it up. Let's talk about how, as far as the job market is concerned, because you and I have this special thing going on, about preparation. And I really want you to kind of tell the story or the short story of it about how important it is to seek help or to seek guidance when you are trying to make a career transition or you feel like that you are stuck.
I think it was a huge thing to do. The one thing, always ask for help. There's somebody that's willing to help you, and I mean, I learned that, early on from the two older gentlemen I mentioned in my career that are mentors to me to this day. Just ask for help. There's people. Not everyone's going to be willing. Not everybody's going to have the answer, and the I'll use our relationship as an example. I mean, I came to you at the right time because my energy was low and I was just kind of like, what am I doing wrong? And just you having your post out there, willing to help, and that's all it was for me. It was someone you were willing to help, and me wanting help and taking and asking for that help, and that's the biggest thing as far as the market itself. Definitely in cybersecurity, the jobs are there. There are a ton of jobs there. It's growing. The need is there. Unfortunately, they make it very difficult to get in the front door. They're just not letting any and everyone in, and so you have to prepare
Exactly.
yourself. You have to prepare yourself, and that's why I said early on that just start with the Security Plus certification, and definitely with your resume, I thought I was good at writing resumes. I wrote resumes for other people, but even
Mhm.
for me, it got to the point where it's like, have someone else look at it. Make sure your
Right.
resume's together and take the constructive criticism. That's what it is. Constructive criticism. Take it, run with it, and it's going to happen.
Yep, absolutely. And the reason why I brought that up is not so much to talk about, the help that I put out there, because what he's talking about was that I put a post out on LinkedIn saying that if you have been unemployed for 3 or 4 months or even longer, to, get some advice, seek a different perspective. But it's really more about helping anyone who is stuck
Hmm.
and trying to make a decision in technology or whatever the case may be. And sometimes just someone looking at your resume can give you a different view, that you're thinking one thing but someone else is interpreting something else. And a lot of times you don't get the feedback from recruiters. You're never going to get feedback from HR managers or anybody else. But if you kind of go to someone who is helping people get jobs, or even just talking to someone who is very objective, they can give you another perspective and an impression, of what your resume will look like. And then you share your experience on how you're able to get jobs. And that's how we move forward as a community. And I wanted to
Exactly.
stress that. So, I don't be afraid to ask questions. If you're not sure what you want to do in technology, tap the next person in line that's at your job that's doing what you think is interesting, and really just talk to them about how you can learn what they know and incorporate that
Exactly.
into your skills, right?
Exactly. I mean, I credit, I credit the two gentlemen that, like I said, I talk to them at least once or twice a week. We get together for lunch. I credit them for, the guidance. I mean, we can all use a mentor at some point. We're never too old for that, for one. And, you know, those guys got my attitude straight. They got me, focused on what I want to do. It made me pick a direction. And that's the biggest thing, is that as far as the job market as a whole or just in life, pick a direction. You have to know what
Mhm.
you want to do. No one's going to give it to you.
Exactly, exactly. So, what are your future aspirations going forward now that you're in the space that you are in? What are your goals for the next 3 to 5 years?
Oh, I'm kind of working on that as we speak. Actually, I've I've gotten to meet and connect with quite a few people to where I'm looking at putting together my own security consulting company, to where just starting off small and building from there. Um, I'm wanting to do some after school programs and things like that to get more young black people into IT and definitely into security, because you know I think it's important that we get our kids involved in something else. I mean, not all of us are going to be ball players. That was kind of my dream, but
Yeah.
life, you know how life works. And
Hmm.
the thing about it is I think if we can get more of us in
Hmm.
IT, with any facet, not just security, that maybe things will get a little bit easier, because there's
Okay.
just not enough of us.
Right. And
There's,
you touched on something. That have you seen many women in this field as well? Because we had a conversation at another event talking about women entrepreneurs or women in IT specifically. Do you see a lot of women where you are in your space?
in my space, not
Hmm.
really.
Not
I
really.
and that's kind of the thing that needs to change as well. I mean, there's not very many women. There's not very many black. I haven't seen any black women at all.
Mm.
And
I wonder why that is. Well, why do you think that there's hardly any black women?
um, I think a lot of it is, um, I don't think it's. They just don't think it's possible. There's just not enough examples
Mm.
of black women doing it, and
Wow.
that needs to change. I mean, somebody has to kick down the door. I mean, then it's not going to be easy. The cybersecurity is a hard avenue to get into. You can get in, but I think it's even tougher, as far as being a black male or a black woman. But it's possible. I mean, I did it, but I think if you come with the right attitude, you come with the skills, there's a place. And it's just I haven't
Hmm.
seen anyone do it yet.
Wow. Okay. So we're getting down to the last part. Are you involved in any other activities outside of IT that you want people to know about or maybe connect with you about? Because you mentioned that you want to do a little bit of training and maybe kind of give back. Are you open to people connecting with you and just getting your advice about the technology space?
Yeah, I'm open to any. I'm open to anybody that that wants to hear how I did it, and opportunities to give back. I'm looking for those opportunities. I'm wanting those opportunities to give back. I think it's important that I give back. I mean, it helps us all as a whole if we give back once you get to a certain place or just get in the door. So I'm definitely open to all of it. Anyone that has a project they would like to ask me if I'd like to be asked me to be a part of. Um, I have a LinkedIn page. I have an email. Um, when at
Yeah,
some
go
point I
ahead.
can
Go
give
ahead
that.
and give them out that
Okay.
information. It's going to be on your page, but for those that's not looking
Yeah.
at your page at the moment, go ahead and give that information out.
Okay. I have my LinkedIn page, and if you look for Marichal Haynes, it's Maric, and last name is Haynes, Haynes. Like I said, I have a LinkedIn page. I can be reached there. My email address is mh1706 @hotmail. I can be reached there as well, and I'm open to any opportunities to give back. I'd love to do it. Um, trying to trying to find opportunities here in Kansas City and work with some people, and trying to create my own opportunities as well to give back, and in the near future be able to employ some people. So whatever you have,
Nice.
let me hear.
All right, y'all, you heard it. So there's no excuse now. You have two people plus a couple people from last year who was on here in information technology, and you have really good information from Marshall right now talking about cybersecurity, IT. How do you need to get into it? What do you need to do to stay in it? And everything. So please reach out to him if you have any questions, if you want to just ask the question, how do you do it, or even think about your first steps. And just getting the answers will definitely help you. Also, want to remind you to check out all the other industries that we have going on because IT is not the only one that you can do. There are so many people that's going to be on this platform that you have an abundance of information that you can take away and use in your daily life. So, with that, I want to thank you. Thank you so much for being on this podcast and sharing all your information with everybody. And we're definitely going to be still connecting because I know I can think of some other stuff to have you involved, not just in Kansas City, but over here in the East Coast as well.
I look forward to it. I thank you for having me.